where is Shedeur Sanders ultimately going to go? And it feels like over the past week or so, it's been a lot of expect him to drop. And you're starting to see a lot of these mock drafts come out, and you just mentioned you're working on your mock draft right now. I'll have one up on VSiN.com some point next week as well. I don't see anybody who has Shedeur going 9 or before 9. So it's worth noting his over-under at DraftKings right now is 8.5. But the juice, is it worth the squeezing? Minus 330 to the over, Matt. So it is very expensive to look over. Could you see a team potentially trade up? Anything is possible, but it does feel like, at least from what you hear from people who cover the draft, who are well-sourced, that he is dropping a little bit. And I'm looking at a bunch of mock drafts courtesy of Luke Swain's at Vegas Refunds sheet here, and he tabulates all of the mock drafts. I see one mock draft in the last week that has him going 1 through 8. Every other one has him 9 or later.
Yeah, that's true, but I don't want to make too much of that. You got to get good information. If you're going to lay 330, you better have damn good information
for sure.
on this. And I think right now a lot of people are just guessing at the mock draft. See, I worked on my mock draft for a couple hours this weekend, and again last night. This is a very difficult one to do after you get past the first couple picks. I'm not even sure those first couple picks should be in cement, right? It's I'm not sure Cam Ward should be a consensus number 1 pick. Or who knows for sure if Travis Hunter is going to go number 2 or if it's going to be Abdul Carter, right? So last year, I look back at my mock draft, I nailed the first 5 picks, and it was pretty easy. And Joe Alt, the tackle from Notre Dame, was the 5th pick. So that draft started out exactly on script the way we thought it would. This one, I'm not so sure. And how about the number 3 spot with the New York Giants? What if they decide, hey, we're going to trade down to number 6 with the Raiders and take, we get a little bit more value at a lower pick, and we take Shedeur Sanders at number 6. Or if they trade down with another team in the top 10 and they decide they want a quarterback. I find it hard to believe that the Giants are going to go into the season with the 2 old-time quarterbacks they've got. I'm talking about Russell Wilson and Jameis Winston.
Or they could also say we could get – I mean, it is believed, and you mentioned this, we miss our colleague Michael Lombardi these times of years because – from everything that I gather, there are really 3 true kind of blue chip, elite type of prospects. Travis Hunter, Abdul Carter, and I think most people have Ashton Genty in that same, top 3. We'll see. But obviously positional value.
Best 2 players in the draft?
Carter and Hunter.
Carter and Hunter.
So if you're the Giants,
way you want to order,
so if you're the Giants and you've got an opportunity to grab one of those guys,
I don't know how you pass.
And I don't think they will.
I don't think.
And I think does Shedeur drop? What's their difference between Jaxson Dart and Shedeur, or Tyler Shuck and Shedeur and Jaxson? I mean, that's what you don't know what they're thinking right now. And for a front office that is very much on the hot seat, can they really waste a pick on a quarterback that may not be ready to play right away? That's a question you have to ask, too.
Well, that's a great question. But at the same time, I think the Giants have to get a quarterback, Tim, because you can't sell any sort of plan for the future when you're going to trot out Russell Wilson and Jameis Winston. You say maybe we can win with these guys this year, but don't you have to have a quarterback? And maybe it's Jaxson Dart. Maybe it's Jalen Milroe, quarterback from Alabama, that the Giants like, and they think, hey, we can trade up from the 2nd round into the late 1st and maybe get Jalen Milroe. That might be their plan. First of all, I think it's a fairly safe bet, as far as drafts go, that Shedeur Sanders is going to slip below that 8.5. If you want to lay the 330, I'm not going to discourage you. I'm saying if I'm going to bet that, I need better information than we've got right now, because I think a lot of people are guessing at this. And every year it happens, Tim. You get a little bit more reliable information that comes out each day leading up to the draft. So right now, I'm not as confident that that's going to be the case. I do think if I had to bet on it today, I would say Shedeur Sanders to the Saints at number 9. But that's today, and I might change my opinion based on information we get 2 or 3 days from now. So that's why I would not lay 330 yet, but that's also why that price is going up. I think a lot of people sense that, hey, there's no team that's in love with Shedeur Sanders in the top 10. And we're going to talk about this a little bit later in the show. We've got a clip of Dan Orlovsky and Adam Schefter talking about this on ESPN. If you're going to draft a quarterback this high, you got to be in love with the quarterback, not just in like with him, right?
So one interesting note from a mock draft over the weekend from John Daigle over at Establish the Run, and he had Jaxson Dart going 9 to the Saints. And this buzz kind of started with Todd McShay late last week, where he had Jaxson Dart going 9 to the Saints over Shedeur Sanders. And what John Daigle pointed out in his mock, which I thought was interesting, was regarding Shedeur Sanders, he said, quote, no one credible in the organization attended his pro day.
Are you serious?
Yep. So that is worth noting that Kellen Moore, no one from high up in the front office attended Shedeur Sanders.
That's irresponsible.
I agree.
If you're going to scout every quarterback that's going to be available to you in the draft, why would you not go? Were you busy taking your kids to Disney World? Or you got to get well prepared for the draft. I think you got to work out Shedeur Sanders and know everything you can about him. That's bizarre. Maybe they just don't like him. So, I was going to actually mock draft Jaxson Dart to the Saints at 9.
Yep.
That's why I got penciled in right now. I might change it later in the week, but Tim, I've talked about this, and I think you've agreed since late in the college football season. I said, watch out for Jaxson Dart. He's going to be the quarterback. I think it's going to rise. Once we get to the NFL draft, his stock's going to rise, and he's going to end up being a first-round pick. And that's what we're hearing right now. I heard somebody say last week, we talked to him on one of these shows, he said, I would not draft Jaxson Dart in the first round. Put on that tape of him playing against Kentucky.
That was Mike Sanford, our friend Mike Sanford.
Okay, yeah. And I respect Mike's opinion. He obviously knows quarterbacks inside and out. But here's what I'll say in rebuttal to that. I can grab any quarterback in this draft and say, hey, put on the tape from this game.
Course.
Put on the tape from this game. There's bad games every quarterback has on tape. I probably said it 20 times last year. If you think Caleb Williams is a lock to go number 1, put on the USC Notre Dame tape. Watch that tape and watch him get punked by the Notre Dame defense and tell me, oh, yeah, that guy's a no-brainer number 1 pick. So you can do that with every quarterback. I think you have to look at the positives with Jaxson Dart and say, what's his upside? That Kentucky game, that was a poor performance by the entire Ole Miss team, not just the quarterback. And Lane Kiffin didn't show up that day either. I thought everything about Ole Miss's performance that day sucked, not just Jaxson Dart's play.
Well, and I'll say this, too, and I've said this a million times. This will be the 1,000,001st time. And, Mike, you and I both respect his opinion a lot, and he said it on this show. He was not a big believer in Bo Nix. A lot of us weren't, but guess who was? Sean Payton was, and that's all that matters. And when you're betting the NFL draft, we've got new listeners, and always appreciate that on Sirius XM 158 or wherever you may be tuning in. When you're betting the NFL draft, your personal you might think that Cam Ward's going to be a bust. It doesn't matter. Tennessee Titans are going to take him with the number 1 pick. That's just where we're at. So that's something that you have to take away. Now, when you go to bet Rookie of the Year, Jaden Daniels, for example, I thought the situation was great. I thought you got value on him, and he runs away and gets the Rookie of the Year award. So you need to try to get, and as Matt just mentioned, you're trying to get information to ensure from your bets or mock drafts, whatever it is. So that's why I think that nugget regarding the Shedeur Sanders Pro Day was interesting from John Daigle, which was not many credible people from the Saints organization were there. We're going to get to who's going to be attending the NFL draft on the other side of the break. Worth noting here, Matt, if you do think Jaxson Dart could be the selection at 9, the market at DraftKings right now is Shedeur Sanders to be the second quarterback minus 250, Jaxson Dart 2-1.
Well, that's one of the bets I'm looking at right now.
Yeah.
I think there's a good chance Dart's going to get drafted before Sanders. Tim, you're really trying to find plus money on most of the draft props you're trying to bet. But when you get the plus money, you got to be one of the first to get it because that line can change quickly. I was talking about position of the Saints' first draft pick. It was up at the Red Rock Sportsbook last week, quarterback plus 350. You had to get that early because that plus 350 is not going to be there long. Right now, I want to mention this report from Tom Pelissero of NFL Network. This is intrigue at number 3. The Giants plan to work out Shedeur Sanders privately on Thursday. Sources tell Pelissero and others at NFL Network. Giants have done a lot of work on Sanders since the fall. Now taking one more look the week before the draft. So that's why I said you got to be careful when you're talking about laying over, over 8.5, laying minus 330, because I do think there's a lot of pressure on the Giants to draft a franchise quarterback that they can groom. I don't know if it's going to be at number 3, Tim, or if they could trade down a little bit and draft that quarterback. But when you get reports like this, I don't think you can ignore it. Tom Pelissero, NFL Network, he's got good sources. If the Giants are working Sanders out a week before the draft, that means they still could be in on him, right?
No doubt. And I do wonder if this is a situation that we saw in 2007. And this is what I mean by that. In 2007, the Cleveland Browns had the 3rd overall pick. They needed a quarterback desperately. Brady Quinn, an Ohio kid, sitting there at 3.
What could go wrong?
But what they decided to do was take a left tackle, and Joe Thomas, who was out fishing with his dad, got the phone call on that boat. Joe Thomas is a Hall of Famer.
Joe Thomas turned out to be one of the best players in Browns history.
And the Browns ultimately traded back into the first round and took Brady Quinn with the 22nd overall pick. And Brady Quinn, as we all know, ended up being, much to my chagrin, a bust. But they made the right decision at number 3. And I don't know if Abdul Carter or Travis Hunter is going to be as good as Joe Thomas, who was a first-ballot Hall of Famer. But if you're the Giants, and we mentioned this to start the show, and as what I'm about to say, I just want to note this. This is very important stuff and should be noted when it comes to betting this draft. But I do wonder, Matt, if this is more of a situation where the Giants also have the, 3rd pick in the 2nd round? That's very valuable to get back into the first round.
They could move up to number 20.
Sure.
And take somebody 24, whatever.
Why if you're thinking about what's Pittsburgh at, 21?
21. You probably want to jump ahead of the Steelers.
So if you could you get up to 20? So it's important that they're, and I'll say this as I look at it right now, I would be curious to see what the odds shifted for team to draft Shedeur Sanders, because maybe the Giants now could be a possible flyer if you get decent odds on player drafted by market. Right now, the Giants plus 250 to be the team to draft Shedeur Sanders.
I don't dislike it. When you see a report like this and the Giants need to draft a quarterback, I think the Giants are going to take one of 2 guys. Tell me if you agree. I think the Giants will draft Sanders or Jalen Milroe. And Sanders is a much more polished passer.
Sure.
In terms of NFL potential, I think that would be the guy you would target. And Sanders has made comments, too, in the past, kind of cryptic comments in the past couple months about how he's going to love playing in New York, blah, blah, blah.
He was out there at New York throwing passes to Malik Neighbors on the night that his buddy won the Heisman Trophy.
So, it's
an important tweet.
Something else you got to pay. I think there's a decent chance the Giants are going to draft Sanders. I don't think 3 is where you want to take him, though, because you got so many scouts to say that they don't even have a first-round grade on Shedeur. So, Tim, could you trade down, let's say if you're the Giants, could you trade down to maybe where the Colts sit at number 14 and take him there?
You could.
Could you trade down?
Or do you keep – I think
number 8. Take him at number 8. Anything. I don't think there's enough value to take him at 3.
I don't think there is.
You got to look at it like an advantage gambler, right?
Yeah.
At number 8, you get a little bit more value if you're taking Sanders. I don't think you're getting what you need to get if you draft him at number 3.
Thanks for watching, but don't let the betting insights end here. If you want an extra edge this football season, you can get a month of VSiN Pro right now absolutely free. That means access to our betting insights, analysis, and tools like our betting splits at 0 cost to you. Click the link in the description to sign up.